All right, folks, welcome back. Special report with Total Financial Solutions Safer Money Hour. That's our normal show. We're talking about some of the financial impact, if you will, of what's going on with the new changes. What will be changing? President Obama ruled, I guess some would say, but led through executive orders a lot instead of going through the normal congressional process of legislation and proposing legislation, and one of the houses develop it, and then they meet in conference, and then it comes to the bill and signs by the president. That didn't happen very much. In fact, there were 330 bills, if I remember right, that were passed by Congress, and the president did not sign. Either passed by the House and the Senate never took it up, or passed by the House and Senate and the president sat on them. 330. You guys think it was a one-way street, but why didn't you know that answer? Why didn't you know? Even if it was 100 bills to do things, to help people, to change Zika virus, to help cancer research, and they sat on the president. Why? Because he didn't get his way. Right? It would happen the same if it was any other person who was of the Senate. And so what you had was Congress was ineffective. And when I was at a luncheon with Paul Ryan a week and a half ago, and he said, look, we can only, I asked him a question. I said, why couldn't you guys do more? People were looking at you. We sent you there as a nation to go do stuff, and why didn't you do stuff? And he said, I wish he said Arif, but he didn't. He said, question answer. he said, I'll pretend like he said Arif. He said, Arif, we have passed bills. We can only legislate. That's our job. And in doing so, we cannot do anything more than that. And so we put bills on his desk, and he didn't do it. So, okay, wow. And that's really as simple as it is. Paul Ryan is pretty much a straight shooter, no nonsense kind of a person. So maybe today things will be a little bit different. I think the President-elect Donald Trump does not want to lose. So I think in his right, it's his thing. So just make sure as you're thinking that means I think he's going to negotiate. He better sit down and make it work, because we're tired of gridlock on both sides. So what does that mean for you economically? Expect some big changes in the first 100 days in Obamacare. It's going to rock the market. I think you're going to see the insurance market change a little bit. Accept some big changes with the Department of Labor and some of the retirement account rules that are just ridiculous, right? These things, there's multiple lawsuits going against some of these rules. And I think expect some relief for coal mining and fracking, which is the self-sufficient energy, right? The left says, oh, we want more solar power and wind power. That's fine. Why not do both? And they think, well, because there's not enough pain. President Obama said this, not me putting in it. We have to raise the taxes and stop the production of coal and oil so that people will feel the pain. Prices will, he said, here's his quote, prices will necessarily increase so that people will want us to develop wind and solar. That was his words. All right, so we tried that. We did it. We got some energy going. I think solar is still the answer. Will it be enough to fit the grid? Not in my car. I still have to drive my car, and maybe not in some of the big trucks and machinery that are going to need diesel fuel, etc. But I think you're going to see a relief in the coal mining world. I think you're going to see a relief in the fracking world. So what regions of the nation are you going to see this? I think you're going to see West Virginia. I think you're going to see parts of Colorado. And I think you're going to see parts of maybe Virginia, kind of in that area, Tennessee. And then you're going to also see in the oil, northern part of Utah, southern part of Wyoming, northwestern part of Colorado, huge fracking. That's called the Uinta Basin. In Texas, in Midland and Odessa, Texas, in that area, there's something called the Permian Basin. You're going to see massive development there as well. And I think what you're going to see with gas prices, maybe not in California, because the People's Republic of California seems to just keep raising taxes. And you understand it's not the poor that do well in California, it's the rich. Because they can afford an extra $2 for a pack of cigarettes or 50 cents for a sales tax. They don't care about any of that.
Right.
It's the middle class guy who goes, gosh, you know what? I just keep trying to get ahead. I get pay raises and I can't do anything. So what will happen? I think in most of the rest of the country, you're going to see gas prices drop. It's already, go to Arizona, go just over the border from California. We're somewhere between $1.20 and $1.50 per gallon more in gas here in California. And we have huge oil wells. We have huge refineries. We don't have to go across the country on rail or in trucks to bring the fuel. We have them right here. And yet with the taxes and the built-in regulatory stuff, we have to pay the price for that. Travel just a little bit and see the different prices in Tennessee. It's $1.29, $1.49 a gallon in most of the rest of the Midwest.
That was one of my biggest eye-openers the first time I had left California and made my way to Indiana. And everything seemed to get with respect to gas, seemed to get increasingly more affordable and less per gallon as I got further and further east. So that's the sentiment throughout the Midwest and all the way up into Indiana, at least at that point. And we're talking, 15 years ago, but that's held true. That was the first time I saw that, and I had gone back a couple times since then by car, and it doesn't really seem to change. And if we go up, they go up a little bit. If we go down, they go down. But it always stays about that same proportion difference. And to your point, I don't know why that would be that much more, other than maybe just mostly taxes.
Yeah, a lot of the rest of the country doesn't have the expenses that we do. I was speaking to now State Senator Scott Wilk, and when he was state assemblyman, he said he had sent a budget, and they would work together because he's a very well-respected Republican in California, reasonable, centered, if you will, and not crazy in any one direction or another. And he said he sent a budget in and they did a reduction. And after that review, they found over 3,000 jobs with Caltrans. I believe it was Caltrans, pretty sure. 3,000 jobs that were duplicate, that were not needed. In other words, we were overdoing it. We were paying two people $60,000, $50,000, $80,000 a year to do the same job times two.
Wow.
And when he submitted it, the far left side, the Democrat speaker and others, said, we're not going to cancel it. We're not going to take out those jobs. He said, what do you mean? He goes, well, those are union paying jobs. So the union got behind it and said, no, those are members that aren't going to be paying dues. So they didn't do it. Instead of thinking, well, my responsibility is not to the union, it's to the taxpayers. My responsibility is not to those 3,000. You can provide job training. You can say, listen, we'll give you $5,000 to go back to a Cal State school and finish your education or get your next degree. And say, but now we're going to take away those 3,000 jobs. We'll give you 6 months notice. We'll give you 3 months notice. The government's job is not to just employ people, because those dollars are not, you don't build a road and charge a toll. We've already paid for the roads. We've already paid for those things through our parking tickets, our moving violations. You paid for the roads through your gas tax. And even the state has other taxes to pay for your roads, CHP, and all of that. So they're paid for. So when they say we need a tax for additional roads, well, what do you do with the money we already gave you?
That's right.
So there's part of this challenge is you're going to have to find a place for you and your family to have a reduction in expenses, and sometimes taxes actually are those huge costs. People often will move when they retire. And where do they go?
They go outside of California and they look for state income tax-free states.
Some of the pros and cons, you've seen me write articles about this. A lot of friends and family have moved to Texas.
Yeah.
That's their place of residence. In fact, some of my most liberal family members left outside of Detroit and Flint, Michigan, and went down to Texas. And I said, why? They said, well, the taxes are lower. I'm
Right.
like, but you're the one that keeps voting for taxes. You're the one that says we should have more. I know, but I don't want to pay them. I think somebody else should. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But here's what happens in Texas. They still have to pay their highway patrol. They still have to pay to get roads done and the state functioning,
Sure.
right?
Infrastructure costs.
They do. What they'll do is they'll have a much larger property tax. And it is county-based. In some cases, it's on the street. You could be on one side of the street, and the person on the other side of the street could pay more in property tax. Here's a good example. A home in California might be $600,000 in our area, a nice home. $600,000. That same house in Texas could be $225,000 or $250,000. But very similar in property taxes. Because the property taxes in California might be 1.25% or 1.5%. That's about $6,000 a year, let's say, $6,500, $7,000 a year. And in Texas, it might be 3.25%, which is about $6,000 per year.
Right.
So just know that the property taxes is how they are often paying for libraries, sewer, schools, library expansion, home study school, things for after school programs, what I meant. You're going to see that happen.
Mm-hmm. And probably you see that it's a more fiscally sound way of doing business, or at least potentially could be, because they know how much is coming in. And yeah, they charge maybe a premium, if you will, above what California is, but you probably don't see all the same propositions and all the bills that are out there looking for bond measures and trying to collect money along the way, because they build a budget into what they have on the known, and they don't have to go back and ask the public for more money.
Well, they default to an idea, and so does many other states, that says, is there a problem that we have to address that is in our list of things that we are supposed to control? And if the answer is no, they say it's not our problem. Yeah, but you don't understand. They go, well, go talk to your local government. Talk to the county or the city, because they're the ones that you're going to see at the grocery store. They're the ones that you're going to see at the baseball game. They're the ones that have a problem. You go talk to them. If they make a mistake, you can hold them accountable. When we have people 3,000 miles away, there was a senator in, was it Wisconsin? Minnesota, Wisconsin, somewhere in the north, who had a house in his area, and they had looked over 1 year period of time. The senator, who was this lifelong politician, had never been to his house. Never. It was supposed to be his residence. And he had bought it and called it his residence, and he had never been there once in 1 year. Basically, he was a Washington politician. And his goal was to see who he could get the next few dollars from to run for the next office. Well, the people threw him out. I don't remember if it's Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. That's the kind of person that shouldn't be there. Because the ideas that he's representing begins to be a smaller group of people, and those are not called his constituents. So you're going to see that the accountability, and why this is such an important thing. I know that some of you are disappointed in the election. 4 years ago, there are lots of people who had a pit in their stomach. I was one of them. After seeing what the president did the first 4 years, I didn't think he was qualified to be there the next 4 years. I remember feeling sick to my stomach. I remember telling my wife, I can't eat. I mean, isn't that bizarre how physically, I remember being so disappointed. Like, I thought he could achieve more. And instead, he was so ideological. Poverty was still the same. Inner cities were still the same. He wasn't leading from the front. He was leading from the back. And I thought, man, what? I know some of you feel the same way. But I never heard the people that I was friends with on Facebook curse and say the kind of words and be the kind of vile comments that I hear today as the losers of Hillary Clinton. Just incredible to me. Now, I'm certain that they exist on both sides, because it's called being a human being. I just have not seen this level of emotion ever before. I want you to back it down a little bit. Go back and look at your family, if you have 1, 2, or 10 children, or just you, and say, how is this going to impact me? Let me give you an update here. What do we have going on in the markets? We are up all across the board in the United States, in some cases as high as 4%. That means the markets are up. That's quite exciting here in the United States. But we're back down to 1.5% to 2.5%, depending on what market we're looking at. Smaller companies are almost 3%. That's great news if you're a small company. I think they believe that a lot of jobs are going to come back home. A lot of jobs are going to be right back here in the United States. Asia looks like it was the big loser, meaning that they thought that they were going to lose business. And Europe is up. Europe is up between 1 and 1.5% across the board, just about. So I think that you're going to see a lot of that conversation about being back to being a leader. And the only way we are a leader in the United States is our economic power. We are one of the only countries in the world where foreign countries use our currency as the primary. Panama, Belize. There are places around the world that use our currency as if it was theirs. I mean, that's power. You don't have to come in with tanks or weapons. You have the bank. You have the money. And that's what I think has kept us not being in this World War deal for many, many years, is because you can manipulate, right or wrong, currency and kind of cause somebody to bend their knee a little bit or stand up straighter by moving that back and forth. We're going to come back in just a minute. What does this mean for your personal retirement accounts when we come back? Total Financial Solutions Special Report. I'm Arif Halaby. This is Jeff Girardi. Total Financial Solutions special report. This is our opportunity to kind of bring to you an update a little bit on what's going on in the financial world, maybe to calm you down just a tiny bit, right? The Brexit thing, when that occurred, my goodness, did the markets go crazy. A lot of times the stock market works this way. Remember, it is a bunch of people, men and women, who go and they're buying and selling and they're guessing, they're speculating. So why would I ever buy stock from a company X? Well, normally because I think company X is going to go up in value. So I'm speculating that it's going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today. So a lot of people were kind of going out on a limb because they were feeding information off of, quote, the mainstream media, where Donald Trump was behind and all these polls and these surveys. And his internal polling was saying, no, we're not. No, we're not. We've got a great chance in these and these. And I share that with you because these are some pretty respected organizations. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, these are big organizations. But when the email leaks started coming out and you saw that CNN contributor Donna Brazil, in fact, she was an employee, not a contributor, an employee of CNN, and she got the questions to the debate against Bernie Sanders, and she would feed them too, verbatim, at least 2 debates, they fed the questions to her so that Bernie Sanders wouldn't know what they were. And when you saw CNN building up for the next debate and they were building the questions for the Republicans and the Democrats, right, the debate, they went to Hillary's headquarters and the emails show that they said, give us some dirt that you have on Donald Trump so we can ask those questions. What are the tough questions you want us to ask? Well, you're not supposed to do that. You can have a different viewpoint, but you're not supposed to cheat. And then when people saw that there was money put in to the different banking institutions, and I think enough was enough. And the people spoke, right, wrong, or indifferent. But look at the map. Look at the map when President Obama was elected, the blue and red, right? They've seemed to adopt these colors. And look at today. You have very small pockets of Democrat support. Where would you expect? Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston, a little bit in Minneapolis, Minnesota area, Detroit. So just some pockets of what you would consider the, quote, progressive or very liberal agenda folks. And if all of your friends think the same way, I don't care if you're in Dallas, Texas, or in San Francisco, but if all your friends think the same way, and President Obama was elected, you go, I can't believe it. I don't know anybody that would have voted for him. Or now President-elect Trump is elected, you go, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody that. You understand that the problem is not that. Back off the ledge a little bit and realize it's you. It's your perspective. Get out there and listen to the other side and find out why somebody thinks that way. I tried to do that, engage somebody, a very educated person, in fact, an attorney whose husband is a physician. Very wealthy, very educated family. And she was so vile and angry against anybody that would even support Trump. And I go, oh, look, I just ask a couple questions. No sarcasm. Just tell me, what is it? Because I want to listen, right? You realize when you talk, you're only sharing what you already know. When you listen, you have a chance to learn something. I wish I said that, but it was probably Gandhi or Buddha or somebody. I might put a comma somewhere and then it becomes mine.
Right.
It's a radio standard. And I say this. Go out and talk to those people. Ask them why. And just shut your mouth for a minute and listen. Because you might have a chance to learn. Like, wow, okay, well, I didn't see that. And my question was, do you know this? Because sometimes if you're not getting your news from this source, you may not know. You know, Hillary Clinton accepted $1 million check from the country of Qatar that hangs gay people, that puts black people as second-class citizens, that makes women not allowed to drive. They have to sit in the passenger side. They can't go out of the house unless they have a relative male with them. The same country that you accepted $1 million, but I thought you fought for women. And then she hid it. She hid it, and it was found out about 3 or 4 days ago. You didn't even know that, did you? Now you might say, it doesn't matter, I still hate Donald Trump. I gotcha, but now you know. Now you can realize the goal is not to be friends with these people. I wouldn't want to be friends with, I don't care, one single president. Because do you realize to be president, you have to be an arrogant son of a gun. You have to think that you have what it takes to run a nation. I don't. I have what it takes to run my company and my family. But the nation, that's a pretty big step. I'm not there yet. Narcissistic. That's right. You think you're it. I want somebody who thinks they're it running the presidency. Why? Because you know what? We as a country kind of need that. Otherwise, you're going to get pushed around. Ask Russia, who's pushed us around for the last 8 years. Ask Iran. Iran kidnapped our Marines and our soldiers, our Navy people, whoever was on the boat. Put them in handcuffs for the world to see, and we did nothing. We gave them $400 billion in cash. There's a lot of reasons why we should do that. That's one of those that say maybe we shouldn't. And people got upset. Some of you say, well, that's just the way it is. I gotcha. That's the way it is. Others said, I'm not voting for anybody who thinks that same way. Big changes, folks. Your retirement accounts. You are going to be able to have a bit more control in the future of those. I like that. I think they're going to also give you opportunity to save a greater amount of money. I like that. I think you want to start getting your debt under control, because we may have a collapse come before we get any kind of resurgence. The sun is not shining yet, guys. We have a lot of debt, both individually and as a nation. Start getting your debt under control as well, because the future is going to change and we want to be there for it. Thanks for listening to the special report. Arif, Halaby, and Jeff Gerard, and thanks again for KHTS for allowing us to come to you live right here on your hometown station. This is AM 1220 KHTS.